Hey girl, happy Monday. Welcome back to the show. Today we're talking about travel, trust, autopilot, and intention, and how all of this is a way of navigating eating disorder behaviors and recovery. Because maybe you feel like you've been living on autopilot, and maybe you feel like life is just happening around you right now, and that's okay. I hope today's show blesses you because, friend, I've been right where you are. And I can't wait to share with you a little bit of truth to spark joy to your day. Here we go. Hey girl, welcome to the Her Best Self podcast. I'm Lindsay Nickel, former competitive figure skater and perfectionist, turned God-led imperfect boy mom and digital CEO. If you find yourself constantly thinking about food and wondering if you'll wake up one day free from the obsessive thoughts and behaviors controlling your life, then I've created this podcast for you. Because I know exactly what it's like to be a downright hot mess, trapped in a destructive cycle of disordered eating. I finally found freedom, and you can too, girlfriend. So if you're ready to heal your relationship with food and body and break the chains of control and show up in your best health, then grab your favorite Tarjay journal and let's get to it. So you can start living your best life as your best self. Hey sister, I hope you had a fantastic weekend. If you're a mama, I just want to say happy belated Mother's Day. Hopefully you had a great one. And if you are a woman who maybe you've lost a child or you've lost your mom or you hope to be a mom or you have a pet that you're a mom to, I just want to say happy Mother's Day weekend to you as well. I hope you had a great one. Okay, girl, let's dive right in. Today's show, we're talking about traveling, trusting, living on autopilot, and being intentional and mindful, because 96% of people admit to making decisions every day on autopilot. According to Psychology Association, 96% of people admit to making decisions on autopilot. And maybe you're thinking today, gosh, I spend like every single day on autopilot. I feel like my life is happening to me instead of me having the wheel and being in the driver's seat of my life. And I felt like that for many of the years that I was anorexic. I felt like every single day I did the same exact things. I wasn't really thinking, and I just kind of went about life. And I lived it in this tunnel. It was such a weird experience. And even in recovery, you can feel that way. You can feel like you're mechanically eating. You can feel like you are constantly just doing the same thing over and over, just waiting for a different result, waiting for life free from the feeling that somebody else is driving the car for you. And you can feel like you are just numb or you're not present. But I want to break down autopilot today. I want to break down what it means to actually be living on autopilot and how maybe that's not a bad thing. Yes, it can be mundane sometimes, and there are days, right, where we need to shake things up. The truth is, living a balanced life, both in autopilot and also by being intentional, is where our sweet spot really truly is. And I want to talk to you about that today. But I also want to talk to you about this topic because I was terrified, friend, of flying in a plane. And I think it all started when I was a little kid. My family and I, we were coming back from Disney World one year, and my parents tell me this story, but they just said that the plane went like nose diving down. And I just thought it was a roller coaster ride and it was literally crashing. And somehow we made it out okay. But after that experience, I don't know, something just happened to me and I was super, super terrified of ever flying. And so I spent majority of my life going places that did not require flying until I struggled with my battle with food taking over my life and the downward spiral that many of you know so well. And I went through treatment for my eating disorder. And as part of that, I felt like I just wanted to do something that I was terrified of doing. I wanted to be the hero of my own life. I wanted to be my captain. I wanted to be my own pilot. I wanted to start learning how to live because I was becoming so empowered in my recovery experience that I decided I was going to go live in London for a couple of months. And that meant I was going to fly across the ocean and I was going to fly. And I was terrified of flying. And so just the fact of flying in the ice and the snow, it really, truly was crippling for me. But also at the same time, I knew that this was going to be an experience that I needed in my life, an experience where I was doing this by myself. I was going to a place where no one knew me. I wasn't going to be judged. I wasn't going to have anyone stare at me. I was just going to be able to be myself. I was going to be able to gain healthy weight, and I was going to be able to live life not having to sit there and think about calories. And part of that was a really great experience for me because I was in a country where I could not read the calorie labels. And so I ate intuitively, I learned how to be intentional, and I got out of the state of autopilot. But the fear of losing control, that fear that many of you know so well, it's like I've always been the type of person that really likes my feet right where I can control them, and that's on the ground. The sky feels so foreign to me. It feels like I'm just going to literally spin out of control up in the sky. I have just always had an awful experience with planes. Well, fast forward, obviously, I made it out okay in that trip, and the journey over on the other side of the world was an incredible experience for me, and it really propelled my recovery forward. So if you're looking to do something just for you, think about traveling somewhere where you know no one, even if it's an hour away. There's something that is super empowering and motivating when you go somewhere where you have no one but you and God to depend on. So I will fast forward the story, but other than the recovery experience, again, I never really traveled quite often. And there were a couple times where I've traveled with my husband. I still haven't taken my kids on a plane yet because, again, I've always had just this negative connotation with being up in the sky and not being able to control anything or anyone, including myself. Regularly now, I travel. And this is something that, I don't know, it's just been one of those things that I've had to learn to get used to. When I take off, I'm always praying, I'm always talking to God, and the same when I'm landing. And so just over time, doing this over and over, it's become very repetition. It's become very autopilot. And my last trip, I actually sat next to a pilot, and he shared how safe planes actually are. He shared that most takeoffs and landings are manual, but that on most commercial flights, autopilot is used 90% of the time. And it doesn't mean a bad thing. It's actually quite the opposite. Autopilot gives the ability to help the plane navigate at the highest level possible because it has all this technology and these sensors that make it possible when it's foggy or when it's stormy or whatever it may be, that the plane can basically control itself and it can go on autopilot. Autopilot, actually, if we think about this as a term, it's the ability to do something without thinking. Psychologists say that autopilot requires minimal cognitive function. And some of us may experience this in our own life with disordered eating or mindless eating. It's like you're sitting in front of the TV and you're just eating and eating and eating. Or others may experience this in other ways, more restrictive ways of you're literally on autopilot doing all the things, and so you're restricting, you're not thinking, you're not eating, you're just living, you're barely functioning, but you're going. It's interesting that autopilot actually gets this negative rap when in fact it is a brain safety mechanism, just like the safety mechanism on an airplane. And when we're faced with stress or we're faced with a traumatic event or some circumstance that's going on in our life, our brain will literally go on autopilot to protect us, just like the plane on autopilot to help navigate to the destination. And so we live on autopilot, and it feels as though maybe we aren't driving, we aren't the one in the seat navigating our own life, but autopilot can protect us. It can, especially when we're trusting the pilot. And I say that because when I'm up in the sky now, and in order just to get through it, I'm like, you know what? God's got this. And I literally will visualize myself as like an eagle, just flying up in the sky. And it is the most liberating experience because it's like I'm just there. I don't have to control anything. And while that can seem so crazy because many of us and our personalities, if you're like me, girl, you just are a control freak and you want to control all the things. But when you can't, when you literally can't, it's the most liberating experience of your life. And so when I fly, I'm learning to love it because for the first time, I don't have to control. I don't have to control all the things. I can let go, I can be, and I can trust my pilot and know that I'm going to get there safely. Life should be balanced. Sometimes taking off, sometimes we are on autopilot, and sometimes we're landing to a new destination. But autopilot only becomes harmful when we apply it to emotional experiences in our life. Because the truth is, when we're doing things out of just memorizing them or out of our body knowing that we're doing them constantly, those things, they're not bad to be doing on autopilot. Yes, granted, we don't want to drive somewhere and then get there and go, oh my gosh, how did I get here? Which I'm sure some of you have had that experience like me. But for majority of the things, we've learned these skills like brushing our teeth and washing our face, and we just do it when we wake up in the morning. And there's nothing wrong with that. When we make autopilot bad is when we equate that to our emotional state. And so that's when those feelings of depression come in. That's when those feelings and those thoughts come in from the eating disorder brain and the mind. It's difficult living completely present and engaged all the time because our brain actually likes to conserve our energy. And especially if we aren't nourishing our bodies like we should be, right? In order for our brain to function, we actually have to be nourishing our body with all the best things. And so being mindful and intentional is actually the opposite of autopilot. However, in recovery, maybe that's being mindful while eating. Maybe that's being mindful, getting present with your thoughts. These are two of the main intuitive principles that I coach women on. Literally sitting down and thinking, what are you thinking about? How are you sitting there enjoying or not enjoying or practicing mindful eating? How are you engaging with yourself? How are you quieting and limiting the noise so that you can be the one getting you to your destination? It's really hard to recover from eating disorder behaviors if we're constantly trying to control all the things, even in recovery. And when we can let go, when we can surrender that, and when we can trust that we're gonna get to our destination, maybe we don't know what that's gonna look like, and maybe we're gonna go through a storm, and maybe we are going to have the seatbelt light on, but you know what? It's okay, because when we can trust that we're going to get to where we're headed and we're not looking back at where we were, then sister, that's where the magic happens. That's where the empowerment occurs. That's where you can learn to embrace your journey. I want to talk a little bit about my experience this past week in the airport because I feel like this is a part of this mindful eating, this intentional, this autopilot that can actually not be such a bad thing. And so I wanted to share this journey with you all because just like we have unhealthy behaviors in our ed mind and in our ed life when we're letting it take control over every aspect of our life, we also have autopilot in recovery, which is good when it's just become our new identity and who we are. And so I had this experience happen over the week and it just truly was life-changing, and I've been able to share it with a couple of my clients. I was in the airport, and again, I practice intuitive eating, which simply means that I try to eat all the things that I want my body to have and nourish myself with, but I try to listen to what my body needs and when my body needs it. And I had been running like a crazy mad woman, like literally at a conference for the week, and so I said, oh my gosh, I got to the airport and for whatever reason, I wanted a breakfast biscuit with egg and cheese and all the things. And I'm not like a huge breakfast biscuit person. That's just not me. But I wanted one so bad. And what was so cool was essentially it's that intuitive eating, right? It's listening to your intuitive state, your gut. And I said, okay, I'm going to go find a place in this airport that has a breakfast biscuit. I find this place and I get there and I'm like, okay, do I really want the biscuit? And this was an example in life where there was so much stress going on around me. And I'm thinking to myself, like, do I want the biscuit? Or do I not want the biscuit? Maybe I'll just get the turkey sausage and the egg and the cheese and I'll just be fine. Like, do I really need the biscuit? And that was Ed's way of trying to get to me in an experience where I was feeling stressed because I was about to fly on a plane and get out of control. And I practice these techniques in recovery because I don't feel like recovery is a final destination. I feel like you deal with these things constantly in life, and it's just learning to navigate. It's learning to navigate them, especially when life can knock you down, and especially when you can feel triggered. The good thing about being, I want to say, an autopilot in recovery sometimes is that you can challenge and you can overcome and you can go, wow, like I have come so freaking far. The old me would have been like, no, I don't even know why I think I want this, and I'm just going to get on my plane and I don't need to eat anyways. The me that's been me for quite some time now was like, Lindsay, go get the freaking biscuit and enjoy every single bite. And you know what, girlfriend? I did. It was the best darn homemade from scratch airport biscuit in Atlanta, Georgia. Shout out to the airport biscuit. And I will just tell you that every single bite I sat and I was present with, and I just sat and said, you know what? I am nourishing my body so that I can get on this plane and be present, so that I can get home to my family, so that I can love my boys and be with them. Nothing felt better than combating that old friend that tried to find me on my journey through stress. Nothing felt better than knowing all of the holistic practices that I do in my own life still to this day, and that I learned in my own recovery. And that is to really embrace that although it can be one of those things where you're learning to trust, and maybe you're just feeling like autopilot is constantly there in your life, and mechanical eating feels so hard sometimes. It's like you're eating to eat. You don't even understand it, or maybe you don't know what to eat, or you're confused. Girl, sometimes just literally sitting with yourself and going, what am I feeling right now? And leaning into that is so important. It's so important because our body knows what we need. We are the ones trying to control these things. So this week, I want you to really get present with how you can embrace both autopilot in your life and being mindful and creating that place of intention. And so I want you to try to set a daily intentional goal. I want you to aim for something. Is it a daily food goal? Is it a daily mindfulness practice? Is it turning off the TV while you're eating dinner? Is it being present with your family? Is it literally being present with what you're enjoying on your plate just because you like the taste or the texture or the flavor, versus trying to control it, to control and manipulate your body and what your body consumes? I want you to take time to get quiet and to get clear and to sit with you this week. Sister, I want you to challenge your thoughts, because the cool thing about autopilot is that it doesn't require a whole lot of thinking and it doesn't require a bunch of cognitive function. However, if we live in autopilot for too long, we can get stagnant. However, we can learn to trust our true pilot. The one that created us is the one that knows our journey from beginning to end. And sister, I just want you to know today that it can be hard being completely present and completely engaged. And the truth is, you don't have a fear of flying. You might actually have a fear of crashing. And I want you to know, friend, it's okay. It's okay if your life hasn't been what you thought it would be. It's okay if you feel like you've been living on autopilot, because every single day you have a new opportunity to wake up and be the hero of your story. You have a destination that you're headed to. Stop trying to control the direction you're going. Simply be on the plane. Sit there. Be present. Be mindful. Get a snack. Put on your headphones and literally just be. Friend, I want to encourage you today. I want you to just be. If you haven't allowed yourself to just be with yourself, I encourage you to do that this week. Sit with yourself, love on yourself, get present with yourself, and trust. Trust, trust. If today's episode has impacted your life, I want to hear from you. Reach out at info@lindsaynickel.com. Girlfriend, I cannot wait to hear from you. I want to know you. I want to hear what you want to hear. I want to get some topics from you, friend. If there's something that you'd like for me to talk about on the show, reach out and let me know. You can find me at info@lindsaynickel.com and come join us in our private Facebook community, Hope and Healing for Eating Disorder Recovery. All right, girl, I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Oh, friend, thank you so much for letting me share what was on my heart today. My hope for this podcast is to help more women find freedom from food and body. If this has empowered or blessed you, let me know. I'd be honored for your rating and review of my show, and I'd love to connect with you in my private Facebook community. You really can move from perfection to purpose. Let's break the chains together. I'll help navigate the way. Until next time, bye for now, girl.